Welcome back to episode 2 of our All in a Weekend adventure. In our previous episode, we travelled 50 kilometers north from Tauranga to the Athenree Pancake House to grab a bite. From there, we jumped on the bike and headed 20 kilometers further north to visit the Victoria Battery Tramway and Museum. There was still ample daylight to burn, so we got back on the pegs and twisted the throttle to ride further north towards Thames in the Coromandel, where we wanted to visit the Thames Goldmine Experience. We would like you to join us as we share this Goldmine experience with you. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the video.
Right, this here is the Golden Crown shaft. Now most mines had a shaft accompanying them so they could get their ore up and down from the lower levels. The object was to bring the ore out as high as possible. That is a typical Thames cage which goes up and down. Either had 4 men or 1 truck.
Tiny.
We're rebuilding the poppet head and there'll be another 2 stories high. The shafts go up and down, drives go in and out. Some of the shafts and Thames go down 2,000 feet.
Sure.
Some of the drives go in for 2 kilometres.
Oh wow. What is this?
Now all the mining started here in 1867, mostly by Cornishmen. They came from Land's End and St Justin, England, when the tin mines closed down in the late 1850s, early 1860s. They migrated all over the world and a lot of them ended up here, and they were experienced tunnellers and could start work immediately. Now here in Thames, the gold is 60%, the silver 40%, as bullion. Coromandel up to the north of us got up as high as 80%.
Oh wow.
Katuna on the Whittianga side, over the other side of the peninsula, got up as high as 90%. But Waihi that still mines today is only 40% gold, 60% silver. Waihi actually makes more money out of other mineral than it does gold. So why call it a gold mine? But white rock, it's also found in the andesites, altered and unaltered. Very hard going, very hard ground. Sometimes they only made a foot a day. Wow. All by hand.
Sure.
No mechanisation before 1904, 1905.
Is any of these tunnels crushed?
No.
No.
That there is a typical Thames drive. You'll notice the ceilings are not very high.
Yeah.
Cornishmen were not high. They were quite wide, but they weren't high.
Okay.
We take the floors out so we've got more room to work. These pick marks and scrape marks you see in the walls are still here from 1867.
Sure.
Don't frighten Thomas.
Yeah, okay.
This is Thomas, our trucker. Now each truck held about a half a tonne.
Sure.
And each trucker would service 3, maybe 4 miners, depending how far in they were or how far down they were. And he'd push out to the cage to be lifted up or set down, or on out to the tip head at the end of the mine. sometimes onto the batteries, but not often. Now all the trucks underground were on wooden rail. It was easy to shift and easy to add to. He'd use his candle to load, put his candle out, put his head down and push, because he knew the truck was on the track. And some of these pushes were up to 2 kilometres.
Okay.
Well, were they well paid at least?
No work, no eat.
Yeah.
That there leads into the Caledonian. Now the Caledonian was the richest Thames ever had. And in some places that went 4 ounces to the pound, where the rest of it was going 4 ounces to the tonne. The Caledonian is on 8 levels, and there's 14 kilometres of drives. Here on the wall we're going to hang up a memorial panel for 56 miners that left here in the First World War to become tunnellers in Belgium and France as part of the New Zealand Tunnelling Company with the New Zealand Army, and most of them returned. The last one dying here in Thames in 1979.
It's wet. Moisture, yeah. Oh, you know, on it.
This is Robert, our miner.
Robert.
Now all the mining was done with a hammer and a chisel, a pick and a shovel, and most important was that thing there, the spider. The spider held the candle. The candle was important because the miners knew that if the candle flame was burning at the correct height, there was sufficient oxygen.
Oxygen, yeah.
If the candle flame got short, the oxygen was short, and they'd have to do something about it. If it was agreeable, they would break into the next door drive. If not, they would dig a ventilator shaft, and some of them stoked up as far as 800 feet. Some of the big mines along the hillside had big sails out, like Chinese junks, to divert the prevailing winds into the lower levels, hoping they get a chimney effect through the layer. We still use a candle if we go exploring old workings, or somebody that smokes a tailor-made cigarette, because we know if they've got to keep sucking on it, there's not enough oxygen for it to burn properly.
Yeah.
And if there's any smoke, it'll give us an indication whether there's a wind drift or not.
True.
No mechanisation, no air, nothing before 1904, 1905.
Sure.
Yeah, that was hard labour.
Very hard conditions, yeah.
Now that there is a quartz leader, what they call a quartz leader. It's thin bands of quartz which generally lead to the reef. That would have been assayed and checked when they found it to see if it was worth anything. But down at the bottom here you will notice how the ground has gone grey and crumbly. That is because there's a lot of iron pyrite in the ground here, which is an ingredient in the manufacture of sulfuric acid and cyanide. And it mixes with the sulphide in the clay to make that type of mixture. It starts to break the ground down, same method they use to reclaim gold today. And you will notice that in big white patches on the clay banks, on the side of the road, on walking tracks, underground, and sometimes down the face of the big clay earth slips you'll see a big grey rotten core where it's rotted the ground down and let the water in to cause the slip. It also leaches out the iron oxides, which is that rusty stuff, and the copper oxides. And it turns the water orange. It's not what you think it is. Heavy iron oxide here.
Yes.
Now that leads around to where we come in, and there's 5 that run off that. This upper level that we're going into goes across behind us here, and that'll give you an idea of how much there is between the layers. Set of stairs here, just be mindful of those. That leads to the outside. This has been timbered up because we've had movie crews in here making movies and ads and videos and so on and so forth. And the last ones, or the ones that are in here now, is making some more stuff for Minecraft, which is a computer game.
Yeah.
And that continues on up there for 60, 70 metres that way.
Oh. This is all handwork.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Millions of hours.
Oh, I see.
That is the quartz reef. This is only a thin one. Some of these reefs are up to 1 metre wide of the white quartz. The grey in it generally denotes the silver. The crystallisation here and the fracture of the crystals. Now we know it goes for 12 metres below us. We know it goes for 300 metres that way. Wasn't rich enough in the day to take out, certainly would be today. The other thing you'll notice, it's laid over, it's on an angle. It's on what's called a graven fault, earthquake fault. And in some cases the reef is split horizontally and pushed up or fallen away. They don't know which. Many arguments and many cups of tea over that, and it still goes on. But that's the grey chemical reaction with the iron pyrite, either side of the reef. And these grey, heavy grey lines in here are probably silver oxides. That there is a continuation of the reef. You can see the iron oxide running through it. Now that leads around the corner for about 100 metres. Around the corner some years ago we sunk a shaft which has put us in the 50-foot level of the Caledonian. So we got access to about 4 kilometres of drives from here.
What are those holes?
Sample holes, drill holes.
Oh.
One day when nobody's looking, you might just put a bit of butter in that and give it a shake. Now this here is timber. One, to give you an idea of what Thames timbering was like. But less than 1% of the drives were timbered. They weren't interested in mucking around timbering if they didn't have to. All they wanted was that quartz out. Just come in there and stand where that torchlight is, right up there, and look up there. That's how they stoped up. They just wedge the timber across the hole and climb on up. Some of these stopes go up for 800 feet. So if you lost your footing at the top, it was a bumpy ride to the bottom.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
No safety, nothing.
There are only 2 safety rules in life. It's common sense and self-preservation.
Yeah, true.
That's a 150-year-old pit prop. That is a backfilled crosscut. And one day when we finish engineering and building, we may reopen that. We've got it marked here. There's another one that intersects you under here. And another one that runs through there.
Impressive. Awesome.
Right, if you put our helmets back and we just gather out here, we'll go through a battery tour. Do you want to do a tour? Right, if we look up the back of the building here, you will see the tramway and the telly house across to the top floor of the building. On the top floor of the building today we have a primary crusher. We have a plate crusher like that one there, which crushes all the football size material down to golf ball size. But pre-1904, 1905, all the football-sized material was hand-spooled down by hammer.
Oh.
Out on the quartz heap, or at the quartz farm. Now, as the carts come through the tally house, the tally would be dropped, and that'd tell them whose ore it was and who hooked it out. Cross onto the top floor of the battery.
What does Joel crush it down to? Golf course size.
So that is the top floor of the battery where the crusher sits. These are our ore hoppers, and we can hold 100 tonne of crushed ore off the ground here. Two very important things in mining, secrecy being the first one, gravity being the next one.
Oh, yeah.
Gravity is the best mode of transport, it's also the bloody worst.
Absolutely.
So once they have control of the ore and it's in the hopper down to golf ball size, they're ready to go.
Yeah.
Now all these batteries were down here at sea level so they could get the power from the creeks and the waterways to drive them. Some were steam driven but not many. And any of the batteries that were not against the hill were out on the flat had to have a poppet head at the rear so they could lift their ore up to get control of it.
Okay.
Once they had control, they could start. So then we come into here. Here we have a battery of stamps, or a stamper battery. This here is the stamp frame which holds all the gear together so it can work. On the side of the ore hopper is the ore gate, which releases the ore down the chute through the ore feeder, which meters it into the back of the mortar box that sits between the stamp frame. This wooden pulley here turns the cam to lift the stamps. Here we have the front of the mortar box. On the front of the mortar box is a fine screen. The golf ball size material is coming into the back of the mortar box. There is 5 head of stamp in the box. That is a head of stamp. Each stamp weighs half a tonne, 500 kilograms. Each stamp is lifted somewhere between 4 to 8 inches, 100 to 200 mil, and allowed to drop somewhere between 60 and 90 times a minute. When the golf ball size material is
Every second.
So that's pretty much 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5 head of stamp.
Sure.
When it's pounded down fine enough to come through that screen on the front of the box, it flows onto this table here. Water is added at that stage to help flush it along and to keep the dust down. It flows onto the amalgam table. Now on the amalgam table is a sheet of Muntz metal, which is a copper lead alloy, onto which the smelterman would paint a thin coat of mercury. You all know what mercury is? Mm-hmm. Mercury acts like a magnet to gold and silver to form amalgam. There's very little gold freed up by the stamps, but what would form small balls of amalgam on that table. It would wash off that table onto these tables here, which are blanket tables. Amalgam table onto the blanket table. Now the blankets were made of velvet or corduroy, has a line in the material. And the heavy balls of amalgam would sink into the grooves. At the end of each shift, the blankets were washed out and the small balls of amalgam were kept for smelt. That's velvet or corduroy, still used in clothing and upholstery today. And then wash on down onto these tables here, which are water-free tables. And they shake backwards and forwards in that direction. Water runs across from the high side, washing away the muds and the clays down that big trough under the edge there, and no doubt some profit. As the table works, the middlings form, and they grade by weight. The heavier it is, the further up the table it stays. You can see the grades across there. Some of these middlings we require, so they're caught in that red trough, come down the small gutter, under the floor, through a lift wheel, which lifts them up to put them through a ball mill or trommel mill, which pounds it down even finer, introducing it back onto the table in the high corner. As the tables work, your heavy materials, your leads, your galenas, your pyrites, your irons and your gold and your silver stay above those grey middlings there, and you can see it start to form down there, and the black line is the sulphate pyrite with the copper and gold pyrite on that side and the iron pyrite on this side. That is your line of colour or concentrate. That is collected in the big trough at the back of the table, transferred to that machine over there, which is called a burdan. The burdan revolves. In it is a large weight, either Norwegian flint or cast iron, and it works like a mortar and pestle in your kitchen. and grinds everything to a paste. Into there, the smelterman would introduce mercury, lots of it, a half a litre or more, with a flux, either baking soda or borax. And he may be working 3 or 4 bedans at a time, and he'll have his hand in there scooping through the mercury, waiting for the amalgam to form.
With bare hand.
Yeah.
No, wasn't it dangerous? Wasn't it?
Yeah, but you've been smoking for 40 years before they put a warning on the packet, eh? Once he was satisfied it had formed, he would scoop it out, put it into a chamois leather, the same as what you mop your car down with, squeeze it into a tight ball to squeeze out all the excess mercury. He did not want to waste any mercury. All the mercury had to come from Spain and it was expensive. Left in his hand is a ball of amalgam. He would then come this way to a smelt area. That is mercury. Mercury as you know it. Liquid metal, quicksilver, found in thermometers, although they tell me they've gone digital now. That is amalgam. That is gold and silver and mercury.
May I help?
Yes, but don't lick your fingers.
Okay. So that will have 40% of gold, not
60% gold.
60% gold. Heavy, no?
60-40.
Such a small but so dense.
If you remember, that's what the dentist used to put in your teeth. Black fillings.
Ah,
Were amalgam fillings.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
This is a retort. The top comes off the retort. The amalgam is put in there. The smelterman would bolt it back together with a wet clay seal. He knew that mercury gas affected his brain. Would then heat this to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, about 330 Celsius. It would boil off, turn into a steam and a vapour. The mercury come down the exhaust pipe, through the condensing tube, into a bowl of water, and it was mercury again that he could reuse. Left in here is the bullion, the gold and the silver. So we take a crucible, put it in there, and heat to 1600 degrees Fahrenheit, about 1200 Celsius. It would melt. He would then pour into the bullion moulds and make himself a bullion bar.
How many kilos?
Once he had his bullion bar, he would then go to the gold exchange or to the bank and register it. Once it was registered, it then would be sent to the mint, where they would assay it and pay out. Once they had paid out, they would then separate the gold from the silver using hot nitric acid. If that was gold, it would be twice that weight.
Sure.
It'd be worth $1 million. Be able to buy a house in Auckland, or at least the front fence.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot smoother, you wouldn't be able to grip it. So you can see it's quite a time from when he got control of his ore till he got it away and got paid. A lot of the miners went broke. They ran out of money, ran out of food, went home, or went on to the next big boom.
So it wasn't like that. I mean, I don't know, daily they could, or weekly they could produce this.
Some of them, yes. The Thames field produced 70 tonne in 40 years. In a 5 kilometre stretch along the hills here, there's approximately 4,000 mine openings.
I did not realize how rich New Zealand is with gold.
Oh, absolutely. There's as much gold left here as was ever taken out. I've mentioned mining around here and you've got 50 shades of green.
Wow, I really did not realize.
Thames at its height had 800 head of stamp operating, 24/6. Religion was a big part of early life, so everything stopped at midnight on Saturday and started again at midnight on Sunday. The Thames water race was constructed to bring water into town from 9 Mile up the valley for power driving and processing. The Thames pump kept the goldfield dry down to 2,000 feet, bringing 3,000 gallons a minute to the surface.
Sure.
There were 10 boilers to run it, using upwards of 100 tonne of fuel a day. 99% of it wood. And any coal that came into Thames came out of the Napa field up north and came down by scow from Kerikeri and Coal. Thames had the largest population in New Zealand from 1870 to 1877 at 20,000 people.
Wow.
And that built to 20,000 in less than 3 years from 100.
Sure. But
Shall we make some noise?
yes. But they don't use mercury nowadays,
No,
right?
they use cyanide.
Cyanide,
is more
yes.
efficient.
Yeah. Hello.
How are you?
Hello.
You look
Fine.
forward to it.
How are you?
Okay, just join in here and I'll be
Yeah.
get you a ticket and whatnot in a minute and we'll go underground.
It's awesome.
Right, on the table we'll start. Clear below. You're right, come in.
So we came just in time, did we?
Oh, yeah, yeah. You're right.
Yeah, this was a tour of the Thames Goldfields mine. Really a cool tour. I could recommend it to anyone that actually hasn't been. Interesting, and I particularly liked it because it sort of reminded me of my, previous career in mining. And it seems like pretty much, I mean, the system or the process is still similar to this day and age. It's really just a case of the equipment that's of course been re-engineered and made more efficient. So, but yeah, awesome place. I highly recommend come and check it out.